Good morning and welcome to the 2020 Largo City Commission Forum presented by the Central Pinellas Chamber of Commerce. I'm Tom Morissette, President of the Chamber. We're happy to have you here today. For the past 65 years, the Chamber has made its mission to educate our business membership and our citizens on issues that are relevant to them and that affect our community. Our committees are active in economic development, small business assistance, school and business partnerships, women in business leaderships, and much more. This morning's forum is being presented as a public service by our Government Advocacy Panel, also known as GAP. It's designed to provide you with an insight into this year's City Council candidates, their vision for the city, and their thoughts and issues and concerns to be decided by the Commission in the weeks and months that follow. I'd like to welcome both of our candidates, Largo Commissioner Curtis Helms and his challenger, Eric Gerard. During this past several weeks, the Chamber has asked Largo citizens for questions and issues they would like to have considered for this program. Those and other questions submitted by the Chamber's GAP Committee will be presented this morning. We provided the candidates with some of the topics to be discussed ahead of time to give them a more thought-out response in the limited time that they have. Our format will rotate between identical questions to the candidates and individual questions from a fishbowl. 2 minutes will be provided for each response. Candidates will be prompted when 30 seconds is remaining.
Thank you. Now we'll begin with our questions. We're going to start with you, Commissioner Holmes. This is a two-part question. In 2021, what singular issue do you feel will warrant the immediate attention of the City Commission? And secondly, if you had $1 million grant to put in any one place in the city next year, where would you put it?
Biggest single issue you're going to see coming up next year is money. It's money and money. We have passed a budget already. The problem you have with the budget we passed is it's a pro forma. We have estimates from the tax collector's office on how much revenue is going to come in on the property tax. We have an estimate on the lost local option sales tax coming in. That is an estimate. The gas tax is going to be down. Franchise fees are going to be down. So we danced and pranced on that. These are not cast in stone. We also have CIP sitting there, which there are certain projects there that may or may not get done. But this is going to be a dance on the budget because you don't know about the COVID effect. That really has not been felt yet, which that's going to have the adverse effect on the local option sales tax. As far as if I had $1 million right now, what would I put it toward? I would probably put it towards the police and fire pension because that is going to come home to haunt us this coming year because we're always a year behind on the posting of that. And several years ago, they made a massive error on this. And I mean, I can't err, I say this, but the investors made a calculated risk that I thought was unfounded. They gave us a discount rate of 8.5% on the pension for the return. It came out at 6%. Back then, I was a day trader in stocks, and I said, I don't know how you're getting 8.5%. Well, it turns out they weren't getting it. So last year, we had to pony up 800,000 plus just to bring the police and fire pension up to par. We're going to get it again this year because the return on investment is based upon the stock market, and the stock market has been taking some hits.
Thank you. Would you like to repeat the question, Mr. Gerard?
Would you please?
Yeah, okay. If you had next year, if you're on the City Commission, what will be the biggest singular issue that you think they have to address right away? And if you had $1 million for any one particular area to spend, where would you do so?
That's a great question, and it's something that requires a great deal of thought and investigation. I would start out by saying the biggest impact in the city, and the number one thing we'll have to pay attention to is, of course, the effects of the COVID crisis. People are out of work. People aren't going to be going back to work all that quickly. Businesses are suffering as a result. Restaurant attendants and so many others. Supplies are down. Working families are having a hard time finding a way to send their children to school and still keep their jobs. These are all things that we need to address as a city. of course, and I really wish that the federal government would step up and do their job and get relief to people, but who knows when that's going to happen right now. If I had $1 million that I could spend, or that the city could spend right away, I would probably put that into a trust fund to help support the families and the businesses that are suffering. The eviction crisis is just waiting, and that we may be falling off the cliff as early as December. And people are going to have a hard time maintaining their homes and paying even their utility bills. The city has done a good job so far doing that, and of course it's drawing down our reserves to be able to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to build those back up depending on how property values turn out next year. And of course, the local option sales tax, that's to pay for Pinellas folks. But if we could put away $1 million and hold it, for a crisis or to help people right away, I would save that to give relief to the people who are hurting and suffering right now. Not just the individuals, not just our residents, but our businesses too, that are struggling to keep their doors open. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you with that. I'm going to continue on with that. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Gerard. Given the COVID crisis and given the unknowns that Commissioner Holmes spoke about, how do you plan on addressing some of the budget issues that are going to be coming forth in the next couple of cycles as a result of COVID and the fall in taxes? What do you see is going to happen with that, Mr. Gerard? How would you handle this dancing you're going to have to do with the budget in the next couple of years?
We are going to have to handle, dancing is a friendly term to use for it. We are going to have to handle the drop in revenues that we can more or less anticipate is going to happen. Of course, sales tax revenues are down already. The city's already dipped into its reserve fund in order to be able to cover the shortfalls. I think, if I'm not mistaken, to a tune of $5 million this year. The budget that was just passed, of course, is working to rebuild that reserve because COVID is not going to be the only crisis or disaster that we'll be facing in the future. We're going to have to take a look at this item by item and pay very close attention. It's almost impossible to predict how we'll have to respond to that. I know that the city has worked very hard to prevent layoffs of staff, and that's wonderful because our staff and our employees, of course, are working families as well. But as far as what to do, we're going to have to take a look at that. Property assessments will be coming out again next year. The property tax that we have this year is based on this year's valuations. Next year there'll be more valuations. We'll be starting work on the budget as early as June, and so as we get into that, as we see how people can begin to return to some semblance of normalcy through programs like Renew Largo, whether there'll be a vaccine in time for people to be able to go back to work. These are all going to have great impacts on our businesses and our residents.
Commissioner Holmes, if you dealing with the budget, you mentioned it earlier, we're talking about the dance. What do you see is where you're going to be looking and analyzing the situation as we go forth with the next couple of budget cycles?
Well, the budget that we just passed the other day, they left the millage alone, the 5.65. And they said, this is not going to be a tax increase. Well, yeah, it is a tax increase because of the taxable value of the properties. All of that money, just like what the county just did on raising the millage rate for the county, all of that money went into reserves. All of it. There was we had no immediate need for it because we've already done modifications on various budgetary things. So, we always get appropriation requests during the year. Excuse me. And this isn't going to be an exception to it. Like I said, the one we got, the big surprise last time was the police and fire pension. And eventually that always falls back on the taxpayer. And this is something about government that as a business owner, I have always found that government accounting is 100% opposite of what the business community does. Every businessman out there knows when you set your budget, I've got $100 here. I don't want to spend more than the $100. That's my budget. When you're in government, you look at the thing and you say, I need $1 million. Oh, okay, well, we'll just go out and get it. See, it's just reverse accounting. You can't say that there's any one thing that's going to come up, but what I will push, and I'm gonna do this again, I started this 5 years ago, is push to get the grants to get these fire stations rebuilt. We need $10 million because there's 3 of them that need it desperately. You give me $10 million from the feds, which is a rounding error to them, and I'll get 3 fire stations rebuilt because these are our fire stations. The ones that, there's one of them that's the county's, that's up to them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to stick with the COVID topic, just one more question. How would you direct the city, we're going to start again with Commissioner Holmes, how would you direct the city to further help businesses severely impacted by this? And moving forward, how would you promote economic development, specifically job creation and retention in the city of Largo?
Okay, as far as COVID is concerned, we're already doing it. We passed this thing, it's already been executed. We are taking the big code enforcement fines that we are correcting. It is not going into a general fund. It is going into a special fund to help the business community. The first group of checks has already gone out. Matter of fact, I believe the average check was they started out at $1,000 and there was some that got up to $3,000. We have become rather aggressive with collecting these code enforcement fines. Matter of fact, we've even foreclosed on a couple of properties that are being sold. We just had another code enforcement meeting the other day where we did a settlement on one where there was another $100,000 that came in. And the question became, what are you going to do with this money? Because code enforcement doesn't need it for its overhead, and it's the fund that's set up. And this money has already been dispatched. I mean, if you go down to West Bay Drive, for example, there's a whole bunch of businesses down there. They already got the check. And I think there's going to be another round of it coming up. What was the second part of your question?
Moving forward and dealing with the retention and expansion of businesses in Largo during your next term.
Well, one of the things that I pride myself on, the best thing government can do is stay out of the way. And a lot of times, government passes so many rules and regulations, it becomes an impediment to the business community. It's a matter of rolling some of those back, and I have been successful in rolling some of these things back. Some of them have been controversial, like the pole sign ordinance, for example. You know, there are some people cursed at me for it, but there's 800 people that love me for doing it. But, you know, these are the things, stay out of the way, government. Let the business community do what it can do the best.
Thank you. Mr. Gerard, the same question. COVID and dealing with businesses while we're going through this pandemic and this crisis, any thoughts that you have on what you'd like to do if elected? And secondly, during the term, how would you look at promoting the expansion and retention of businesses in Largo?
Well, first of all, I do applaud the city. I think it's a wonderful idea, very innovative to use the nuisance abatement program and the fines that come out of that, the fines and the funds that come out of that, even from selling off the properties, to go into the small business grant program. That is a great program that the city did develop, and I think it's wonderful. The city has other funds that are available too, and the very first thing that I would do, because I've spoken with hundreds and hundreds of people, and business people here in Largo, is to let folks know that there is money available. There's a vast fund from the county government. There are funds available from the city government, and they're not getting out as quickly as I would like to see. I think the city ought to promote that more and let people know that there is money available to do this. Is it going to rescue everybody and pull them out of the hot water? No, but it may put off a day of reckoning for a while, and it may solve an immediate problem. So to let folks know that the money is available, and also to continue to utilize and and innovate. Perhaps some of that money that is coming into the reserve fund could be directed toward that as well too. The reserve fund right now is scheduled, won't reach it there on the original target of 5 years, but is moving toward a 20% reserve on a budget of over $180 million. Some of that could help the people who need the help right now. As far as promoting local business, first of all, I think that affordable and workforce housing is something that really ought to be addressed. As I said, Largo is a leader. We have affordable and workforce housing going up along the Rosary Road corridor, the great program that has just been initiated with Habitat for Humanity for affordable housing neighborhood. These are things that are essential. Businesses can't thrive if they can't keep employees. And that's one of the things that we really need to address now.
Thank you. We're going to start back again with you. Another story at the Times. What kind of policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in Largo?
That's an excellent question. Thank you so much. We have a city right now with approximately 14% Hispanic, Latinx population. We have added to that roughly 6% Black population. We have on top of that an Asian population that is sizable as well. And yet the city, which I love and I respect, and yet the city has no people of color in any of its top executive management. And perhaps out of all of the advisory boards in the city, one person of color. And that's out of over 90 people on our advisory boards, like the planning board or the library advisory board or the budget advisory committee and all of the others. It's easy to say we care, but as a dear friend of mine used to say all the time, don't tell me you love me, do loving things. We need to aggressively pursue folks of color, minorities, and invite them into the city, aggressively pursue these folks and say, come and join our Citizens Academy, learn about the city, be invited onto the advisory boards, and let's recruit these people in. You know, there's a question that has come up over and over again throughout the years that I've been in the city about trying to get the Ridgecrest community to annex into the city. Ridgecrest community is primarily Black, and everybody's offered them lip service. But I can't see how there'd be any interest in joining the city until we show people that we care and we want them involved. Don't just say, oh, please, please, please. Let's do something about it. And as far as a diversity commission, which has been discussed, that's nice. But if they don't do anything and only say nice words, who's going to pay attention? Who's going to care? It's just one more empty promise. Thank you.
Commissioner Holmes, would you like the question repeated, or are you good?
No, I wrote it down. This is a subject, I already had a conversation with the city manager about this, and I said, Henry, we don't discriminate on hiring in the city of Largo. He said, that's true. And I said, if you have a qualified candidate for any given job, you will hire them regardless of race, creed, color, religion, whatever it may be. He says, that's true. And I said, well, what's the issue here? I said, we have a very diverse police department. There's plenty of diversity there. As a matter of fact, I asked the chief the other day, I said, how many different languages do we speak within the police department? There's 14, by the way. You know, that's pretty good. But in the fire department's the same way. You've got great diversity there. Now, when he said, what Eric says about the administration, that's true. But I've asked Henry, I said, what's the issue here? And he says, we don't get qualified applicants. But I think he just did IT. There was 2 big openings that came up. IT was one of them, and I believe he hired a minority to head the IT department. And community development's just opened up because Carol Strickland is now taking a job with the county. But we don't discriminate against anybody. But as far as even Ridgecrest is concerned, we have reached out to Ridgecrest many times. Matter of fact, in Ridgecrest, we have, I believe it is 30 or 40 voluntary annexation agreements in Ridgecrest, and I've been kind of pushing the city to let's do something with that. True story. The last time we had a meeting about the annexation of Ridgecrest coming into the city of Largo, you know what the opposition was from? It was 4 white ladies. They did not want to come into the city of Largo, and yet we have all these voluntary annexation agreements over there. So some of this stuff is pretty iffy when you get into the thing. You really want to push through an annexation into the city, which I don't think the county would go along with. And you got the same issue at High Point. I mean, High Point is Hispanic, and we have many voluntary annexation agreements over there, but it's the same issue.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to start again with you, Commissioner Holmes. What measures would you support to reduce the effects of climate change in Largo and Pinellas County?
There's very little the city can do. I mean, we're one little piece of the county here. We're already changing over vehicles to electric vehicles. We're putting in the recharging stations. I think we've got 3 of them now. And there's the latest purchase of vehicles has been the electric vehicles. They're changing the lights down. The street lights are going to LEDs. They're changing the lighting within the library. Those are becoming LEDs. The community centers are already LEDs. So that footprint is being reduced. The community called the Central Park Performing Arts Center, that is also getting changed over. So you are getting this reduction that's being done. It's not going to happen overnight. All the vehicles we're buying now, you're getting better fuel mileage in them, but an 80,000-pound fire truck, there's not a whole lot you can do about improving the mileage of a fire truck or a solid waste truck. But these are all things we're moving forward on. This is also one of the reasons behind building a new city hall is outside of the fact the existing city hall will cost $12 million just to do the repairs on the thing. You can, a new one's literally falling apart, and it's really anything but fuel efficient. We've had the presentations from the architects that the new city hall that they're proposing is going to be a very high efficiency structure. So there's a lot of the stuff that we are already involved with.
Thank you. Mr. Gerard, your response?
Well, thank you very much. It's a great question. It's a pressing question at the times. I want to start out by saying that Largo has made great advancements, great innovations in promoting sustainability. Of course, our Largo Environmental Action Plan, which Inside Baseball calls LEAP. Our Largo Environmental Action Plan has been in place now for a while, getting ready to release LEAP 2.0 next year, which will actually be more expansive, and that's a great thing to do. Largo does take care of its own home. We are buying electric vehicles, we are upgrading our facilities. Of course, that would be just a normal part of keeping the city up to date. What I'm excited about and what I want to see promoted and supported aggressively by the city is our involvement with things like the Pinellas Sustainability and Resiliency Network, which brings all of the cities together, or the great majority of the cities in the county, on the same page about resiliency, about disaster preparedness, about environmental action, to do what we can in this county to counteract the effects of the global climate crisis. We are in a crisis. Sea level rise is a real thing. More and more aggressive, disastrous storms are approaching our coast. This is not going to change. We need to be ready for these things. And Largo alone can't do it, but we do need to promote our efforts on a county-wide and then a region-wide basis. Those are being done. We need to be at the forefront of this.
Thank you, gentlemen. The final question before we go to a couple of random questions in the fishbowl. This has to deal with infrastructure. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Gerard. First, what do you feel is Largo's immediate infrastructure need and how would you address it? And how do you feel about Largo's current transportation options? Does it need to do more?
Well, I'll take the second part first.
Okay.
Of course, we need to do more about transportation. The number one issue that businesses in the city bring up is a transportation issue, transportation and mobility. This is where we need to work with our regional partners as well, such as Forward Pinellas, which of course has a great deal to do with our transportation infrastructure, along with the PSTA. Largo's done a great thing. If you take a look at our special area programs, such as the Largo Mall program, or the new one that just got passed by the City Commission out in the Tri-City area, and even in downtown, a lot of these have mobility initiatives written into them. Mass transit, transit stations, transfer stations, looking forward to express mass transit service so people can get to work back and forth
wait hours and hours for a bus, and all of that to help reduce the transmissions. I can go into that a lot more, but there is another question I think that involves infrastructure.
The immediate need for one immediate need.
Infrastructure is pretty clear, and it's something that we are really going to have to pay close attention to in next year and the coming years. We've addressed a great deal of the wastewater collection problems that we've had in the past. Our wastewater and stormwater collection and transit systems have been upgraded. Our wastewater treatment plant has been upgraded. That's great. We need to start taking a look. We need to start taking a look at the laterals. These are the connections from the private property into the city. We have a very old building stock here. A lot of these are crumbling, and we're going to have to be improved. We need to work again on a regional basis so people aren't slammed with highly expensive bills just to connect their laterals to their homes. When we're required to do it, we need to take a look at how they can afford to do it too. Using county resources, Swift resources, and others. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Holmes' question, you need to repeat it?
No.
Thank you.
As far as infrastructure is concerned, the biggest one has always been environmental services. And that's why we borrowed $130 million. 80 million of it was for lift stations and the pipes themselves. And this ran all the way from Indian Rocks Road, all the way to the treatment plant. The other $50 million was for the improvement to the plant itself, which this was mandated by a consent order from DEP. And that should be done, fingers crossed, by the end of 2021 to the beginning of 2022. It should be done. As far as transportation is concerned, we had very little say on that. That's really up to the PSTA, and Forward Pinellas is working with the PSTA. I mean, I'm a former board member of the PSTA, and I do believe Gerard's wife is still on the PSTA board. An individual municipality has very little say on how the PSTA wishes to operate. And, there's a fee you pay the PSTA to have them stop in your town. But there is a problem with the laterals that's coming from the homeowner to the system itself. And that is something that's already under discussion with environmental services. They're trying to make a couple of deals with contractors, and they're also looking for other grant money and things of that nature where people can tie into that thing to fix their laterals. Of course, you can also maintain them if you wish. You can keep them cleaned out. You can use, I forgot the chemical that you can dump down your toilet that will keep the roots and everything else out of it, where you can get a lot of extended usage of the things. And I wish I could remember the stuff we used to dump down to come out, but anyway, but it's still out there.
Thank you, sir. We're gonna have a little bit of fun now. Rob, if you could help me, and if you both grab 2 questions out of the box. I'm gonna start with Mr. Gerard. Just read the 2 questions and answer them. They're quite simple. And then we'll follow up with your closing statements.
Just one paper for 2 questions?
No, two questions each.
Oh, 2 questions.
Yeah, and then read the question, and then we'll hear your response. Commissioner Holmes, we'll start with you. Your 2 questions and your responses, please.
What is the title of the book you are currently reading, and why did you choose the author? I am currently reading a book that's called For Good or Evil, The Impact of Taxation on the Course of Civilization by Dr. Charles Adams. He's gone back through history, and he's pointed out taxation at a given time, what the effect has been. And he's just going, there's this, I think 26 chapters in the thing, but each chapter is a story unto itself. And one of the ones that I found most amusing on it was, you've heard of the Rosetta Stone. You know what the message on the Rosetta Stone is? This was, they used that to interpret hieroglyphics. Well, the Rosetta Stone had 3 languages on it. One, and I'm going to mispronounce this, I believe it was called Druids. And the second one was Greek. Well, Greek was the common language of the day, and then hieroglyphics, which was the language of the elite of Egypt. to fight a war, you needed money. And Pharaoh at the time was on an expansion kick. And he was running out of money. So he went to his people and said, well, we need to get more money to pay for the army so they can go out and do blah, 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 blah. And they said, we've taxed the farmers and everybody else as far as we can go. Where can we get more money? And one of them said, aha, the temples, they've got a lot of money. So they hired the mercenaries, which that's what they were. They were paid a commission, and they would go out to the temples to try to raise the tax. Well, the priests got to the point and they said, no, you're not going to do this. And if you keep it up, we're going to tell the people you're not the son of God. Literally, that's where it came from. So you know what the Rosetta Stones got on it? That's a tax exemption. They put it in front of the temples so when the mercenaries would go around to get it, here's the tax exemption. It's written in stone. That's a true story. That's where it came from.
Thank you for sharing that.
It's an interesting book.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. And your second question, please.
How come your cat likes you? Well, I guess that's not the question. What can be done on the city's behalf to get more people to vote and get more of them active in local government? Boy, if I had the answer to that one, I'd be a rich man. We have danced and pranced and tried. We have done phone calls. I have had a standing order there. Get involved. And I tell these people, you know, city commission meeting, you can get involved on Zoom now, or come out to the meeting, fill out, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've told, you know, when we had commission meetings that were live, I said, fill the questionnaire out, ask us a question. You can go up to citizens, you know, once upon a time, citizens' comment in the city of Largo was the last agenda item, which was, we don't want to hear them. Well, way back when we had to change to the first item. We want to hear the people. Well, I don't know what else you can do except beg. You know, come on out to the meeting, just like the neighbors that come knocking on my door. What are you going to do about this and this? I don't know, come out to the meeting. Either that or send me a detailed email and I will forward it to the city manager and we'll address it from there. And I would say maybe 1 in 5 will do that. And I have no clue why they don't. I mean, this is your opportunity. Nobody up there bites. And after all, we are the public servants. We're there to pour your coffee.
Thank you. I remember the days when I was at the end of the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Gerard, your 2 questions and your responses, please.
My first question here is, what are your thoughts on ways that the city of Largo can better address the problem of homelessness? Well, first of all, let me say that homelessness is not a crime. People who are homeless for a reason, and it's not a criminal act to be without a home. I think the city has done a wonderful job now in starting a homeless initiative in which when the police department, which by the way, I support 100%, I think they do, I think the police department does an exemplary job in this city, which is one aspect of the support that the city gives to them, and also their forward thinking in hiring a mental health counselor to ride with officers. By the way, it was great news to see this morning that the sheriff has expanded their mental health counseling program, I believe tripled the size, because this is a pressing issue. And they have a homeless counselor as well, too. It's not a matter of just getting somebody off the street. It's a matter of getting somebody from a homeless situation to a place where they have a permanent and safe residence. The Safe Harbor program right now at the jail is a 3 hots and a cot program where people are brought in and either have to lay on the floor on a piece of foam or outside, you know, get fed, and then they're gone. There's no counseling program. There's no way to start a continuum from here's your situation right now to where we can finally get you perhaps decent employment and the counseling that you need to get over the issues that are keeping you homeless and get you into some kind of a secure and safe situation, instead of living in your car or bed hopping or just living on the streets. What can the city do? The city can work more with this homeless initiative, can work more with the mental health agencies around the county, and can just start to get involved in moving people into decent, affordable workforce housing.
And your second question.
This is a fun one, okay? I was just thinking about this great president just the other day, as a matter of fact. Do you believe that Ronald Reagan was right when he said that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help"? Well, let me start out by saying I wish the government would get down to work and help, because the folks up in Washington, D.C. aren't doing much to help the folks who are hurting right now, arguing over a relief bill that ought to have been passed a month ago. So to say that the government's here to help, I wish they'd get to work. One of the issues about not having involvement in government is the fact that it uses too much of what I like to call inside baseball. That is terminology and acronyms that people just glaze over when they hear it over and over again. Some of the things that we hear all the time: DEP, CIP, flume, that's a good one, CRAB, WAST. Well, if I was watching a city commission meeting and I wasn't doing my homework because that's my job to do it, I wouldn't understand what they're talking about. We need to get down to the point where people can understand what's going on, don't feel like they're on the outside, and we can bring them into the inside. The old line about "you can't fight City Hall" is kind of true, simply because City Hall is arranged in such a way where everybody inside City Hall talks one language and everybody outside of City Hall talks another language. I've had conversations with people who've been trying for years to get simple situations solved, but they can't get them solved because they don't even know what department to go to. I had a conversation with the city manager about this the other day. The chamber does a great job of working with businesses and has regular contact with City Hall for business support and has a business ombudsman. I asked about whether we ought to have a citizens ombudsman, and the city manager, who's a great guy, been with the city for a long time and cares a lot, said, well, you can be directed either through the receptionist or just call the city manager's office. People need to know that. And who's going to follow up with these folks to see, has your problem been solved? So Largo does a wonderful job, has some great services, is a beautiful city, but we do need to be more attentive to paying attention to what the people need and how to help them understand how to get it done.
Thank you both. I'm going to wrap it up now with both of you having your closing statements. Since you began, Commissioner Holmes, I'm going to let Mr. Gerard begin. You'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this. Once again, I want to thank the chamber and I want to thank the city for putting on this forum. It's a wonderful service that you perform. Being an elected official is not a position of power. It's a position of responsibility. It's a position of caring. It's being a servant. I want to bring a sense of unity, a sense of consensus, a sense of mutual respect to the commission, so that when people come to us with ideas, be they good or bad, they're treated with respect and with the courtesy they deserve. The residents of this city, the staff of this city deserves our utmost respect. I'll start out by saying the staff of the city work hard and are constantly exploring new ways to make our lives better. We owe it to them to always treat them with respect, with intelligent, thoughtful questions, and then make a decision based on the principles, not on the personalities. And the same goes for our citizens, and especially our volunteer citizens who are on the boards and are looking at these issues at no pay, but only out of a sense of public service, to come to this commission with their ideas. Whether I agree with them or not, I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to look for consensus. I'm going to look to uncover the good ideas and what they're presenting and to promote them. Largo's a great city. I've been a resident here, as I said, for 35 years, been endorsed, and I'll repeat it because I'm proud of it, by four previous city commissioners for this office. We're a wonderful city. We have a ways to go. I want to bring a voice of understanding, a voice of experience, and of business experience, and as being a resident here, to help serve the people. To serve the people, not to lord it over them, but to serve them with a sense of humility and respect. And by the way, thank you for your vote. I hope you will vote for me this year.
Thank you, Commissioner Holmes.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been very entertaining and enlightening. One thing about city politics is, believe me, experience matters. It's not a matter of theory, it's what have you done. And since I've been in office, I don't have the time to recite all this stuff, but there was issues going on. For example, down in Kent Place, there was constant sewer overflows down there that had gone on prior to me even being in office. And I took them on, I took the city on that, and after much to do, they finally found out it was the city's problem, and we got the thing fixed. But even the residents down at Kent Place said unless I got involved, this thing would have just continued on infinitum. There was a problem down Wren's Way with a flooding issue, that every time you had a monsoon rain, you had houses down there that were inaccessible, and if you had a boat. And they called me up, and I went down, I took a look, and I talked to the city about it, and the city manager said it's their problem. I said, no, it isn't, it's our problem. Fast forward, city ultimately said, yeah, it's our problem. And they fixed it. Wren's Way doesn't flood anymore. There was a problem with Paradise Island Mobile Home Park that had gone on for almost 15 years. And their park manager finally called me up. I went out there. I have a background in the construction business. And I looked at some stuff and I said, well, that's methane coming back. They said, yeah, we know what it is. And I said, where's it coming from? So anyway, the city administration strongly disagreed with my assumption. And I said, let's get an engineer out there and take a good look at this thing. Fast forward, it turns out it was the city's fault because their contractor put a baffle in backward. And we ended up fixing the stuff at Wren's Way. We also had the problem with the take-home cars with the police department. I could go on, but the proof is in the pudding. The leadership matters, the experience matters. Been there, done that. I have come through for the voters and the citizens of the city of Largo. I appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you both. We wish you continuing best wishes with your ongoing campaigns. I want to thank the folks here at Piper this morning, Josh and Ryan, for your help. Also want to thank our government action panel, advocacy panel, GAP, for all it's doing. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Your vote really does matter, probably more than ever this year around. Thank you very much for being with us. And I represent the Central Pinellas Chamber of Commerce. It's great to belong. Check us out at www.centralchamber.biz.